It may come as a great surprise to many people that the idea and concept of reincarnation is part and parcel of Jewish ideas and tradition. And the reason that this may come as a surprise is that if one looks in the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, and even in the Mishnah and the Talmud, there is no mention of reincarnation. So the natural question is, so how can reincarnation be a part of Jewish tradition when it's not mentioned? One way we can answer that is that the nature of the Torah is very different than other holy books. That very little philosophical teachings are given over in the Torah. The Torah is highly symbolic, and it gives over its wisdom through stories, events, incidences, and through the 613 commandments. And therefore, in the Torah itself, the reasons for the commandments are not stated outwardly, and what the meaning of the stories is not stated outwardly. That was given over to generation after generation and our rich oral tradition to understand what the meaning, symbolism, and allegory of all of these things are. So many of the most important concepts in Judaism are not mentioned explicitly in the Torah, but we have an oral tradition that they are part and parcel of our world view. Where we do see the concept of reincarnation is in the mystic tradition. The classic work of Jewish mysticism is the Zohar, which has its source from 2,000 years ago, from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his students, and it was later edited and disseminated in Spain approximately 1,000 years ago. And in the Zohar, which is quoted liberally in all Jewish learning, the idea of reincarnation is mentioned over and over again, and it begins to reveal the secrets of how reincarnation works, and almost a who's who in the Torah itself. But the Zohar is a very cryptic, symbolic work, and it wasn't until the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the great Kabbalist of the 1500s in the city of Tzfat, who revealed in the most open way the secrets of reincarnation, where the sources in the Torah, the prophets, and the writings are. And he revealed an incredibly complex and insightful system of not only how reincarnation works, but what is the purpose, as it were, from God's point of view, in having reincarnation being a part and parcel of the human condition. And so therefore, for the last 500 years, the concept of reincarnation, which until then had been a very hidden tradition within Judaism, was given open exposure. A few hundred years after the Arizal, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement in approximately 1750, popularized the teachings of the Arizal, and especially of reincarnation. And there are so many stories of the Baal Shem Tov revealing to people who they were in previous lifetimes and the reason that things are happening to them. In the modern era, virtually all of the rabbis now accept reincarnation as not just a part and parcel of Judaism, but actually a foundational teaching that gives us insight to so much of what we go through and history, why history unfolds the way it does, because not only individuals but whole generations, according to Jewish teachings, reincarnate. And so therefore, we see an amazing idea here, how this concept of reincarnation, which really for thousands of years was a central part of Judaism, but it was very hidden, has little by little opened up, and people now not only accept reincarnation within Judaism, but it is shedding light on so many deep ideas as to what the existential human condition is all about.
Last week, someone asked a question about an intellectually disabled child. Who are they testing, the parent or the child? My question is, you had mentioned that the person came back to resolve an issue. Does that mean we believe in reincarnation?
Yes, definitely. Oh,
The question was, do we believe in reincarnation? Based on last week's discussion about souls coming back in different forms. Do Jews believe in reincarnation?
yes, we do. The Kabbalists talk about it a lot. There's form written on it. And Sefer HaGilgulim, one of the forms called the Sefer of Incarnation, Reincarnation, written by the Talmud of the Arizal. So we definitely believe in that there's such a thing, definitely.
Who can I call?
A Jew dies. Oi, what happened? The soul lets go of his body, and his body falls to the ground. The body dies, the soul does not die. The soul leaves the body and goes up and up and up. And as it approaches the gate of heaven where it will go before the judge, there's a bas call, a voice from heaven. And the bas call asks that soul, did you enjoy my world while you were there? If that soul would answer, what are you crazy with the wars and famines, what's going on there? If the soul would answer like that soul would have to come back to this world again and again to that very same place until that soul learns that God put that soul in this world to be happy. Jewish mystical writings teach that just like did God put Adam, the first man, in the Garden of Eden way back then when he created the world, so does he put man in the Garden of Eden today, right here in this very world, when he busies himself with Torah and mitzvahs. If we will live a life of Torah and mitzvahs, we'll see this is the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, God's presence dwelt. In the temple, which stood right here, God's presence rested. How can we see that this is the Garden of Eden? How can we see God's presence resting in our life? King David said to enter the temple, enter the gates with thanksgiving. You want to enter the gates of the temple? Say, thank God, thank God. Thank you for my life. Thank you for what you've given me. And King David tells us to get even further into the Temple Mount, to enter the courtyard, enter the courtyards with praise. You want to get even deeper? Praise God. God, you're gorgeous. God, you're the purpose. You fill and surround all. Non-Jewish mystical writings say that this world is an illusion. It does not really exist. Some even say it's evil. The Torah says it's a gorgeous opportunity if you use it right. This world where we're living now is the only time and place where we can improve our futures, where we can gain a better share in this world and in the world to come. Thank God.
Hi, I was asked if Judaism believes in reincarnation. That is to say that the soul has been here before and comes back again in another form, in someone else, in another body. So the answer here is yes, with some reservations. In other words, the vast majority of Jewish scholars since 13th century have accepted reincarnation. The Zohar, which is the great Jewish mystical text, dates back traditionally to about 1,800 years ago, to the time of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai in the north of Israel, discusses it at length. The great Kabbalists like Rabbi Isaac Luria of Tzfat, 16th century, has an entire book about reincarnation. Maimonides and Rav Sa'ad Gaon did not accept such a concept, but the majority of Jewish scholars, the mystics, the Kabbalists, certainly have accepted the idea of reincarnation. And on a basic level, what it means is this. The essence of the human being, of course, is body and soul, but the essence is really the soul, and the soul is composed of or rather is modified and evolves based on the experiences, decisions, feelings, memories of the person. So in a sense, the soul is like the information. The body is like the hardware that stores that information. Obviously, as we know in computers, and this is what I'm doing right now, is we can upload information into the cloud, so to speak. And in a sense, that's what happens with the soul. The body, being the hardware, can actually be trashed, can be disposed of. The information that actually is the person, the soul, that is stored. And that information can be downloaded, so to speak, into new hardware. Now, we're not aware of the past experiences of our soul, although there are times that some people have been aware of this, but in general, we're not aware of it. But the idea is that the soul is supposed to reach a certain spiritual, moral, ethical level in life. It doesn't always do this in one lifetime. A soul is supposed to accomplish certain things. It does not always do that in one lifetime. So the soul is brought back into this world, which apparently is painful for the soul, but it comes back into this world and is given a new hardware, meaning a new body, with the tools, personality traits, talents, character traits, etc., the tools which it needs to actually fulfill and get closer and closer to its role and its perfection. This may happen in one lifetime, it may happen in 2 lifetimes, maybe in 3. And the idea of reincarnation is that a person should be aware that whatever happens to them in this world is not necessarily reward and punishment, but primarily what happens to us in this world is planned so that we can actually fulfill our task and bring our soul to perfection. The tools that I have been given in the sense of my physical abilities, in the sense of my mental abilities, my emotional abilities, all these things are very much like a toolkit which is given to me so that my soul will be able to fulfill its task in this world. Sometimes we confront a soul which has very minimum capacity in terms of its capacity, its tools in this world. That might mean that that soul is very near perfection. It's near the end of its task, or the end of its path in this lifetime, and that means we have to have a certain respect for that soul. So a person with tremendous abilities, tremendous capacity, etc., maybe their soul has a long way to go, and hence they've been given tremendous tools in order to actually fulfill that soul's task in this world. So it's, in a nutshell, it's a little bit of the understanding of reincarnation. In Hebrew, it's called Gilgul. Gilgul means to revolve, meaning the idea of the soul coming back, returning, revolving into this world in a new hardware, in a new download, in a new body. As I said, Maimonides didn't accept this, and if you look at the famous 13 Principles of Faith, which Maimonides lists in his commentary on the Mishnah, and it's printed in many prayer books, it doesn't list reincarnation as a fundamental principle of our faith, but he does obviously accept the idea of the soul, we accept the idea of the world to come, etc. But reincarnation is something which has been accepted by the mainstream of Jewish scholars for close to 1,000 years, possibly 1,800 years, and certainly is accepted by all the great Kabbalists throughout our history. So that's, in a nutshell, a little bit of an idea of Gilgul reincarnation. And as I've said in previous weeks, there is a comment section under the video. So if you would like to put a question in that I will try to answer in this format, please do so. And looking forward to hearing from you.